So you think you want to be a healer? Part 4. It's what you are, not what you do. Think anybody kind of contemplating a certain awakening in terms of healing and moving forward, and what does that look like and how does it manifest for you in your life? It's really important to know that, like, your healing gifts are interwoven into the very frequency of who you are, the very fabric of who you are. It's not, we kind of get caught up in techniques and, oh, do you do Reiki? Do you do healing touch? Do you do this? You know, what is the modality? Maybe you use biofeedback machines, or you use a sound bed, or whatever it is. We get very caught up in all of that, and kind of set up our own little judgment patterns around it. Maybe compartmentalize, well, this is what I know works, and that other over here that's different than, or even strange maybe doesn't work. And I'm asking you to be very careful about those biases. I remember, well, one, I didn't set out and say, hey, you know, I want to be a healer. I set out and said, well, I got to go to school, so I know I don't want to do anything with science. I'm going to take all these, you know, I'm going to get a Bachelor of Arts. And then I kind of got interested in physical therapy when I had a tendonitis of my hip issue, and the doctor just handed me a prescription for Vioxx and said, here, take this. Thought, shouldn't there be, you know, something else going on there? Roundabout way, went from physical therapy to wanting to be an obstetrician, deliver babies. Thought maybe I could learn something about the miracle of life that I was kind of missing out on or unaware of. And then watched too many bringing home baby shows on TLC where these women were kind of being coaxed into cesarean sections, and remember thinking, gosh, so many of these women are so unhealthy and they're just giving them these babies to take home. Like, how could I better affect the daily life for people, and specifically women, because they tend to kind of create the culture for health in the home. And that's what led me into chiropractic. I didn't know anything about Reiki or energy work or any of this stuff until about 9 years ago, when I moved down here and started becoming aware and having all of these things come in front of me. So all that to say, there was a calling for me, even if it wasn't conscious, to get to where I am. And I'm grateful that I listened to all that, and I'm very excited about all of those things that I've created in addition to. But there is a point where I can be a healer and I can do all these things because they are part of who I am, without calling it healing work, without having to create something separate from the chiropractic or from the nutrition. Or maybe you have an office job, or you're a teacher, or you're something else, and you've got this calling in your heart to be more of a healer in the world. I guess I'm sharing all this to ask you to discern, you know, what does that look like for you? Are you wanting to learn a technique and then lock yourself into that and kind of hang up your shingle and say, I'm a Reiki master now, or I do activating ascension, or I do this biofeedback machine, whatever it is? Because I feel like right now there's a calling on so many. And for us to rise up and really affect positive and significant change in this world, we might have to look at doing that in a different way, and not associated with, this is what I do. I do these modalities, these techniques, and this is what I believe in, and more who we are. I've said from the beginning that if I can do a rain dance for you and it helps you feel better, then I'll do a rain dance. I'm not attached to what kind of the technique is. So I know I'm taking a kind of a rambling road to get here, but this is my point. There are institutions and organizations and government entities and all of these places where you may or may not be currently employed. And you might be looking at those places as though, you know, your consciousness is opening, your consciousness is rising, and they're no longer a fit for you. And you maybe have this calling on your heart to be a healer, and you're thinking of leaving that behind to move more into this other place. And what's coming to my awareness with that is that yes, we need more healers in the world for sure. We need more and more people stepping into that power, that part of who they are, and manifesting it in our relationships and how we influence others. However, there's a little bit of a lag time between that awareness and people saying yes, they want healing, because everybody needs some kind of healing, right? But needing it and having the desire to actively seek it out, not so much, right? So it all comes down to, where can we have the biggest impact? What is our sphere of influence? And maybe for you, it absolutely is to learn a technique, a modality, and make a career change. Or maybe for you, it's to stay where you are and start thinking more in terms of, what can I offer? What can I shift in this, maybe in the consciousness level or the integrity level of the institution where you work? How can you contribute and have a positive influence to those around you, rather than kind of getting stuck in that, I hate my job, I want to leave, it's no good here? Because I think sometimes we latch onto that, and we want to believe so badly that the next thing we'll do will be magically better. But anything you're going to go to, you're still going to have the bumps and the learning curves and the opportunities to grow and shift, and it can be uncomfortable regardless of where you are. So there's also some kind of sense of needing to be fulfilled by our work, right? Like maybe as an accountant or a plumber or whatever it is, knowing that you have the opportunity to be fulfilled by the relationships that you build while you're at work. Maybe it's not the job you do, over and over again on that daily basis. Maybe it's the people you get to influence. And if you are standing strong or tall in that role of healer, then that's going to bring about a positive effect and influence on probably and likely more people than if you attach yourself to a technique and you say, this is what I do, and you try to, hang a shingle and open the door. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of or into anything. It's simply a point that I've been thinking about for a while, that comes down to discernment. Like, what does it look like to be a healer in the world? Is it this narrow thing attached to a technique where somebody comes in and they want that for themselves? Or really, is it about being among the people, joining groups and clubs, and of course, doing things that are fulfilling to you and bring you joy, but not only looking at it from that kind of one-sided thing, what am I getting out of this? But also saying, what do I have to share in this? And how can I affect things simply by being who I am? Because really, in healing, whether you hang a shingle and have a modality, or you stay where you are and work what I call in the world, it's not so much about what you do. It's not so much about what you do. It's about how you influence and interact with that person. It's about frequency activation and consciousness activation. And this is coming from someone who has created a full spectrum technique or modality in activating ascension, and saying it's not to get attached to that. And it's way more about, somebody's coming in to see me and I have some wisdom, I have some frequency activation in that area, and it's going to come through simply by proximity. And the techniques, the modality is going to facilitate that, but it's not the impetus for it. It's not the push. And that's why you'll have one person who goes to somebody and say they absolutely loved them and the technique they did worked great. And you have somebody else that goes in to see that same person and they'll say, didn't do it for me. They didn't have a connection, so the technique didn't have anything to build upon or latch onto. There was nothing, the space wasn't there for it. So again, you can have that in private practice, and you can have it in the world. So hopefully this has given you some more things to think about, this 4th video in the series, So You Think You Want to Be a Healer. We have one more to go, and I look forward to sharing it with you. Thank you.